So to begin with, I would like to know, where is the pendulum of the advertising and creativity swinging? So do the single person or the freelancers are the people that these brands are going to, or they are preferring the agencies? How are they deciding it?
No, I'd say that it's not as though, brands, first of all, freelancers or consultants like Shalini and I are certainly not the first go-to for most companies. Most companies actually prefer big names, assuming that they can afford the big names like an O&M or a Lintaslo or any of the McCanns of the world, the because those big names also come with big creative names behind them. They have a lot of work established. There are lots of campaigns that are celebrated and talked about. So it's natural. But, a lot of people actually mistake advertising and marketing to be the same. Most people assume that we need marketing in the company or we need a brand strategy. Let's call up O&M. And I have nothing against O&M, by the way. I think they do fantastic work, and I wish I could hire them myself. But never mind that. Most entrepreneurs wish that they could call up an O&M and that an agency would do the so-called brand strategy and figure out how they can help their brand grow. Now, the thing is that marketing and advertising are two very separate functions. Advertising is a small part of marketing. There's a good reason why companies like a Unilever and a Pepsi pay, the likes of 3-5 crores per annum as CTC to a CMO, because marketing actually in its purview has a lot more. It's portfolio management, it's understanding what are the drivers of the business, it's understanding pricing, packaging. Communication is just one small lens of it. Now, having said that, I think there are young companies that are realizing that if you get quality talent, like, quality talent that can help them with their marketing thinking, that can act as an outsourced CMO or an outsourced creative thinker, then that is a lot more cost efficient, and they can also get far better speed to market, because agencies are attuned to working in a certain way. They come with structures, deeply regimented processes, and large teams that are better suited for very large corporations. Should a Pepsi or a Unilever work with the likes of a JWT? Absolutely yes, because the two tango very well. Both sides are attuned to working with each other in a certain fashion. But with younger companies where speed to market and cost efficiency and quality work is paramount, over there, I think models of the kind that Shalini and I present to the world today have become a lot more viable, and young companies seem to be recognizing that. Shalini, would you like to add?
Yeah, for sure, Vani. So to add to what Vani said, so for all, like the major part of my career, I worked in advertising agencies only. And, I come from that side of the business, and Vani comes from the client side of the business. And I've realized, like in all of these years, in 21 years of working with a rediffusion, with Saatchi was my last stint. So yes, there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of value add that you can do to the client. But what actually set me thinking was that at an advertising agency level, there are, as Vani rightly said, there are processes, and you can't bring speed to what you, in fact, both of us work together on a common client, and you really cannot bring speed to the processes because there are so many levels of it all involved. So I think that this is the go-to model, and the younger clients, the clients who really want to, have results, see good work, and that too in a shorter span of time, are coming to us.
In near future, what do you guys think that it will make the brands realize or select independent personnel?
Well, I think it's exactly that. It's see, cost is one aspect of it. The fact is that, even for most companies, a big ad agency or a big marketing consultancy. When I say, a big marketing consult, one of the bigger recognized names. The fact is, yes, I have no shame in admitting mine is a small, lean, mean setup, and I pride myself for the fact that it's a small, lean, mean setup. But most of the bigger names come with retainers that that are large, in the sense that, typically the retainers are upwards of 20 lakhs. Now, that's one. Two, like I said, speed to market is another big concern. The larger the agency, the larger the number of people, larger the time it takes for both agency and client to understand how they can work well with each other, appreciate the brief, get some basic processes in place, and then move forward. Now, the reason why most of my clients have found, great comfort and have actually deeply appreciated the way, the kind of work that I bring to the table is because I'm able to marry the big structures of the Unilevers and Pepsis of the world with the demands of smaller companies and move ahead with speed. So you're able to get the nub of the matter, do exactly what's required, and the fact that you can pick up the phone on each other. For example, even when I was working on Cars 24, Vikram and I, or Gaju and I, used to have direct conversations with each other on the phone. Now, typically with large agencies, that wouldn't be the case. You typically speak with the junior most executive. That person would come with a small team, they'd take brief, they'd take notes, then they'd go back, then they'd minute it. Then the minutes of the meeting would land on your table, then you would make corrections, then it would go upwards, then there would be a timeline sent on, this is the number of days in which we will come back. But you shortcut through all of that processes, all of that long-winded back and forth. And instead, it's a lot easier to just pick up and say, does this make sense to you? Acha, I'm sending this to you. Or take a look at it. Then he'll call up and say, acha, isko aise kar sakte hain, and cut, you go. So that's the reason why, even with, on Nature's Essence, Shalini and I were able to move very, very fast. I mean, in one of the appreciation mails, Amit has written, at the end of December, I remember it was 25th of December. It was Christmas when I started working with them. And at that time, we had very little category understanding. We started with entirely on zero base. We started with category understanding, drafting the research proposal. We put in the research 8 different concepts. We tested different propositions, arrived at the right proposition. We arrived at category insights, crafted the brief. I spoke with Shalini. I told Amit before that, look, I have a girl in mind. I know she's very good. She has a lot of beauty experience. Though there were 2 others as well, actually, who I put on the table, but it was very clear that Shalini was the best of the lot who was cut out to do this work. Shalini came on board, and within a few days, typically agencies take, 3 to 4 weeks minimum for the first presentation. Shalini came back in a matter of days. We did iteration very quickly. And we put together the full package. I mean, Shalini should talk about the full creative package, but it wasn't just that. It was also bringing in, co-opting the support of their different vertical heads within the company. And even that one was able to do because I could very quickly build relationships with the other vertical heads in the company. In order to get anything moving fast, it's very, very important to also have the buy-in of the key stakeholders within the company. And that is also a puzzle that, piece of the puzzle that usually gets ignored when one is working with big agencies, because you're just so caught up in trying to get work to move ahead with the primary stakeholder that interacting with the others usually takes a backseat. It doesn't even come into the picture. But over here, we had the support of the sales head and the guy who was leading the parlors channel, and that's how things moved forward very quickly. Shalini, you want to add about the creation of the package?
what Vani said, that, it is actually a hands-on approach, which I was trying to do in my earlier stint at agencies, but it wasn't possible because you're loaded with so many brands and you have to do justice to each one of them. So this is what our client Amit really liked, that we were really hands-on, like Vani was there and I was there, and we were like, every research, we were like really thorough, like a part of every process. And that's what the client also liked about it. In fact, the marketing head Supriya, she could pick up the phone on me and talk to me, and that wasn't possible in a big agency setup. I'm not available to clients as a creative director. It's the account management person who will talk, then there'll be some Chinese whispers that'll happen, so then the message will come to the creative person, and by that time, already it would have been 2-3 days since the message would have come to us. And then obviously the creative person would be loaded with their set of accounts. So by the time, so the turnaround times were really quick, and that's what the client liked. And then an interaction with a senior person on the team. And that's like, that's a win-win situation for the client. That's not possible in a bigger agency setup, because to be fair, one has to give time to each and every client that you're handling. But over here, if you're hands-on, you're talking to the person, the key person. Like for strategy, Vani is the best. And, you're talking to her, and she's having that hands-on approach for the brand. And why wouldn't a client want that? It's like, in a bigger setup, one would never be able to reach out to Vani. It would be only her bachas who would talk to the account management bachas, who would in turn talk to, someone else. And that's how, like, it's a much quicker process, and then it's a hands-on approach. So there is, like, it's a watertight thingy where you really can't go wrong, because you're so close to it and you're giving it all the love that you have. And it's one baby that you have to look after and not feed 10 of them. And like, you can see that how much of care can you give to that one baby that you're looking after. And that's,
no, I remember even for celeb, you remember Shalini, at that time we had so many first of all the question, किसी को लाना चाहिए या नहीं लाना चाहिए, अच्छा कितने पैसे होंगे, so अच्छा, can we look at all the names? Then we had this little WhatsApp group, and I think on that WhatsApp group we must have easily exchanged at least 100 names. Can we look at this one, iska profile dekho, iska profile, and this was all between the three of us, अच्छा हुआ the celeb agencies, इससे बात कर लो, इसके कितने पैसे लग रहे हैं. So now this is just, it's almost like we were a very close-knit family, it's almost like we were in the same room, and we're a family who've known each other for a while, and we're taking these decisions like it was something within the family. That's how we were able to move very good. Acha ye iska profile dekh lo, and then similarly for the contract, I mean, Amit and I used to pick up the phone on each other at any time. Shalini and I worked very closely. Shalini's entire graphic team, I mean, how many changes we made, but all of that was possible only because, we were working in this close fashion. Actually, that's true for most of the clients I work with. I mean, I'm bragging a little bit over here, but I want to tell you that even on Mars Foods, which was a very big project, over there, it was about identifying the right food opportunities that they could enter India with. And in a span of less than 3 months, we went from scoping the entire market to creating concepts, prototyping them with consumers, creating the prototypes of 7 different platforms with the R&D teams, even assessing capacity utilization within the factory, and putting the full business plan in front of the global team in all a span of 3 months. A lot of this was co-created with food bloggers and food aficionados. All of this is possible only because there are small teams that have direct access to top management, and we're able to take very quick decisions on the go. So I think this is a model that more and more companies, especially the younger companies, are more amenable to. And I don't think it's actually just a matter of monies. I see companies having raised a series of funding, and they realize they need to be very quick to the market. and they want to cut through the bullshit and get to what matters as quickly as possible. Because particularly in the entrepreneurial world, they're looking at growth every day. Every day they're tracking, are our numbers growing or not? So they can't afford the kind of fluff, that big processes or big agencies or big names come with. And that's where a model like, of the kind that, we together represent, I think is becoming a lot more viable, a lot more appealing for new age companies.
So, ma'am, but to make a campaign, there are a lot of people who are involved, be it the cinematographer, be it the spot boy, be the makeup artist, and there's a whole lot of team who's involved. So who were the people that you partnered with or you hired for these campaigns?
Shalini, you want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, so we worked with the best talent in the industry. We haven't cut corners there at all. In fact, the best of who you could get is what we got for the client. And that's the benefit of working in such a setup, because had it been a big agency, you could see where and how you could, save your money. But over here, we thought that because I got such a big experience, like really, really, like all these years, I worked on a lot of beauty brands. So, we got in touch with the best cinematographers. We got the best director who specializes in working on beauty. His name is Nitish Sharma. And then we worked with Ayanka Bose, who's worked on a few films, and he's like the best in the industry as a cinematographer for beauty. So he gave us that lovely look that Harnaz has got. And for still photography, we partnered with the photographer called Prasad Nayak. Again, he's a legend. So, like in terms of partnerships, we've had such lovely partnerships with everyone in terms of talent, that's why the product is what it looks like.
And we just leveraged our personal relationships. Shalini can pick up the phone on any of these men. And then at that time, it's not even a matter of acha kitne mein, it's just हाँ Shalini तेरे लिए तो कुछ भी कर दूंगा, it's just that.
Like that.
Yeah. तो तू मेरे को बता दे क्या करना है.
In fact, one of the directors told me कि तेरा काम है यार, तेरा पहला काम तो मैं free में कर दूंगा. So that's the kind of relationships we have in the industry after having so many years.
Yeah, and I remember even for Cars 24, which was my other big blitzy celebrity campaign that I'd done. See, at that time, I remember Vikram telling me that we're spending a lot of money, but we're not seeing any increase in the footfalls in our branches. So we don't know what are we doing wrong. Is it the messaging? Is it the media? Or is there something in between? We have to figure out what the issue is. So I started working with him on scratch, with consumer interviews, with internal interviews, with interviews of their branch managers, etc., crafted the concepts, did the full deep dive. But I remember even for advertising, I was asking him at that time, they had Boman Irani, they were doing a campaign with Boman. And I said, you got these campaigns on air, I see they're very visible. Ye aapne kaise banaya? He said, actually, we just went and rang our neighbor's bell. Our neighbor was Policy Bazaar. We asked them, tumne kahan se ad banaya? To unka number do, and that's how entrepreneurs work. There's a reason why they are as big as they are, and they're able to get ahead as fast as they can, which the likes of big companies struggle to, because it's this nimble-footedness, it's just about went and rang the neighbor's bell, Policy Bazaar, acha tune kahan se ad banaya? Uska number de. And they called up that production house, and the production house said, you want an ad? For sure, I'll make an ad for you. There's no conversation on strategy, and what is strategy? And, and they made the ad. Now, to full credit to them, it's not as though that ad wasn't giving them anything. It did give them visibility. And I have tremendous respect for Boman Irani. He's one of my favorite actors from the Bollywood landscape. But the point I'm making is that that's how entrepreneurs work. And when I started working with them, again, they didn't have any ad agency, celeb management agency, influencer management, and none of that. Digital agency, media agency, kuch nahi thi. There were no agencies on record of any kind at all. And I said, don't worry, since we have to put the campaign on air in the next 3-4 months, we can't afford the process of pitching, assessing portfolios, bringing them on board, fat retainers. I said, you know what, I'll just bring in freelancers from my past life who I think can do a great job. And we did just that. We had 2 creative resources. I brought in a media freelancer from my Pepsi days, a young girl, very, very good, very sharp. She worked directly with the client's team. For production houses, I remember we went through a battery of over 50 production houses. We saw all of their work and directors. And then within a matter of 3 days, we identified who we wish to work with. We put down 4 names on the table. I called up, Amit Singh was the AD at that, was the director at that time. And he flew down in 2 days. And he said, oh, I'm flying down, let's have a chat on this face to face. And that's how it got rolling. And, you know, from the time that we got the script ready to the time that we had ready films on table, it was less than a month. This would be impossible to achieve at the likes of a Unilever and Pepsi, because I've worked for so long at big companies like these, which to their credit, if it weren't for the training that I've received at a Pepsi and Unilever, I'd never know what are the things, the zillion things that can go wrong and the zillion things you've got to take care of. And I have deep respect for those processes. But I think now, having been through that training, one is able to bring the best of that to what really matters and shortcut through the fluff that eats away a lot of time.
So I'm taking a cue from what you just said. Where do you think that the Indian advertising industry is headed, and how has it been evolved in the past few years?
Well, in the past few years, I think I can't say about how it's been evolved. There's a whole lot of it's the fundamentals of advertising actually haven't changed. You know, the fundamentals are what create great communication, and that there are enough number of smart men and women on both sides, advertising and marketing, to be able to still put that on table. There are, you know, men and women in the ad world, in the marketing world, who I deeply revere. That will not change, because you know, like Adgully has taken out a book on digital advertising, and he talks throughout his book. His refrain is exactly that the basics of advertising haven't changed. You have to understand the consumer. You must get a strong hold of the consumer insight. You must understand who you are speaking with. When will this person be receptive to the message? All of those principles haven't changed. But I think in terms of the models of engagement, now, because the entrepreneurial economy is more flush with funds, and there is a need to put results on the table faster than ever, because every category is becoming so much more cluttered. There is just no category today where one can sit back and say, you know, मेरे पास तो great product है, इसको तो copy करने के लिए बहुत time लगेगा. I have dominant market share, or I'm comfortable in my seat knowing that, you know, I will continue to have dominant market share for a long period of time. That's not true for any category at all. So there is tremendous pressure on every company in order to survive, to be able to quickly capture the consumer's imagination and hold on to this consumer. And that's why the need for astute advertising and marketing at a great speed. And this is the reason why traditional models of advertising, you know, those have now been, you know, entrepreneurs are finding ways to short circuit those and get to what matters. Would that be the right thing to say, Shalini?
Yes, sure. In fact, you know, in my earlier advertising days, I would tell all my juniors that, you know, just to do a leaflet, we would get a week, 10 days, and just to crack a campaign, one would get 15 days. But yeah, and now cut to now, the digital age where, you know, content is consumed at a pace faster that you can even imagine. So, you know, gone are the days, and we also had a lot of time, you know, we had a lot of tension to transform into this kind of a model, because we belong to that school. A campaign hai, so we'll have to, you know, spend a lot of time on it, but that's not the case. But having said that, what Vani is rightly said, that advertising is here to stay, and it'll always be, but it's just that how it works, the model, that's the way, you know, if the economy is changing on the client side, it's changing on this side also. And that's what is changing, but it is here to stay. And, you know, I attended a conference with Neil French where he clearly said that you really have to understand the client's product so much so before working on it, you have to use it, consume it yourself. If it is a packet of chips, eat it, you know, and that really stays. There is no shortcut to that. We're not saying, you know, we're going to cut that process, because you need to understand. All we're saying is that we are the ones who have to understand. So we're making it like a faster process, and that's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I remember, you know, you were talking about that leaflet. A lot of entrepreneurs, for a fact, have creative teams even in-house. You know, a lot of this small stuff is done in-house. Now, you know, I remember as a brand manager and the various levels of marketing that I've been, for every little thing, it was call up the AE, ये flash change करना है उसको, you know, उसको phone करके बता, and then it would go through 50 iterations. इसको yellow करना है, इसमें shadow डालनी है, नहीं shadow निकालो, ये नहीं ठीक लग रहा, अच्छा इसको वापस भेजो, इसको इधर दिखाओ, can we change it to green, but our brand color is orange, oh but the orange color is not going with it, you know. And in all of this, that little flash would take a week or 10 days to finalize. But that's not a luxury that one can afford anymore in the entrepreneur. You know, the guy sitting next to you, that graphic designer, and you are peering into his computer and saying, नहीं इसको ऐसे change कर, इसको ऐसे कर, अच्छा ये हो गया, ये बन गया, इसको निकाल दो. You know, it happens in a matter of minutes. And it's not just that. Even for leaflets, very recently I worked on a med tech firm, and I worked with one designer, just one guy, and we turned around 2 pitch decks, posters in 3 languages, brochures in 3 languages. All of that we did in a matter of 1 week. Now, this is starting from understanding the business, writing the content, understanding what will work with the doctor fraternity, and turning around the collaterals, all of this in 1 week, because it was the founder and me and the designer, just the 3 of us tic-tacking amongst ourselves and saying cut, and it's done. This would be impossible to achieve in the likes of a big company. You know, could a Colgate or a Cadbury's or a Pepsi do this? No way.
Concluding with this conversation, I would like to know, what are the next projects that both of you have?
Oh gosh.
In this market of freelancers, it's a tough question, because, you know, every day is a new day, and there are like so many freelancers like us out there.
Is there anything that you all are working on right now, or how is it?
There's lots we're working on. There are a few FMCG brands, there are a couple of B2B brands, financial investment brand. Like I said, there's this medtech firm, there's a video conferencing giant I work with very closely. So in fact, that's the reason why I love this new life of mine. This because it allows me to use my intellect on so many different categories. I feel intellectually challenged. I feel I'm learning so much more. I spring out of bed every day only because the amount that I learn every day. I remember having had this conversation with this guy. It didn't fructify that, you know, that conversation. It didn't fructify into a project, but I learned the difference between diamonds and lab grown diamonds and lab grown gems, and I saw what they look like, and they look exactly similar. You'd never be able to tell the difference between a lab grown gem, a lab grown diamond, and a real diamond. And the cost difference is as vast as 102 rupees, you know, in comparison. And so there's just so much I learned. There's a financial investment firm that I'm working with right now. And I would have never thought that, you know, with my limited brains and the way I used to handle money through all of my growing up years, that I could ever be in a position to advise a financial investment firm. You know, I would have thought that that would not even happen in 1,000 lifetimes here on. And here I am doing it. So it's... So I think just being a solopreneur in a sense allows you a lot of width of exposure, and the great thing is that I'm able to work with people like Shalini, and it's just a lot of fun working together. I feel I'm
Yeah,
making
it's
a lot
so
more
much of
money
fun
and having
working
so
with
much
her.
more fun together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In fact, just to add to what Vani said, I've always been very scared of driving. And imagine I'm working on a motor racing brand, and that's like, oh my God, my son was like, Mama, like you're learning about all of that, like speed and, like
Yeah.
karting and all, like drag race. It's so much cooler to be exploring so many different categories. I'm also working on a pharma company. It's a supplementation company, and like like really really different and varied kind of portfolios, and it's so much fun to learn so much from every different category. You're not just confined to the brands that your agency has. So it's a lot of fun, and really, really, I've enjoyed so much working with Vani. Can't tell you, like, we've had such a lovely relationship and so much good chemistry happening between the two of us, where, she would just crack the strategy, and we thought about creatives together. I could jam with her, just pick up the phone on her, and it was really wonderful working with her.
Actually, on that point, I want to say something else, Nehal. The fact is that great work comes from great relationships only. If you find it difficult, if there is tension of any kind between a creative and the brand team or the consultant or whoever else, or then it's not possible to get great work out, because you'll always be thinking, ye kaise bolu, iska pata nahi, how would this be received, should this go through this channel, iska what would be the right protocol. You cannot get great work that way. And I think the truth of the matter is that even in companies and agencies, a certain person will feel comfortable picking up the phone on a certain other person. I mean, how do, production agencies and creative agencies tango, for example? I know as a creative head, I'm comfortable working with such and such. So I'll pick up the phone on such and such and sell this production house to the client, because at the end of the day it's actually the relationship that is winning and seeing its way through to the end. So I always say this, even as clients, the reality of the matter is that even at agencies or whoever you work with, there are those one or two people who you depend on for great work. So for me, for example, an agency, a JWT will be equal to X and Y. I can pick up the phone, let's say, on a Binay and a Rinku, who I feel very, very comfortable with. For me, they are equal to the agency. Now, imagine if they were pulled out of that large setup, and I, as a client, were told that you can still work with them and they'd come at a very, very small fraction of a cost, and we can still have access to all of those resources. Then wouldn't that make a lot more sense for the individual? Actually, it's all individuals working with individuals. The names and the structures that come behind it are just comfort. It's just a matter of risk aversion, so that I'm able to say, oh, I have this big name behind me.
Yeah.
But actually it's just people who connect with people. And it's, even on an account, for example, there is a team that's assigned to you, and within that team also, that ye wala banda hai, there's Sid ko main phone karke बताऊं, Sid सारा काम कराएगा. तो सिड को अगर निकाल दिया जाए उसमें सिस्टम में से, एंड सिड बिकम्स योर राइट हैंड मैन, तो फिर मेरा काम हो गया ना. Then I don't need the, I mean, I'm simplifying it, I'm oversimplifying it, but that is the reality. The reality of the matter is that great work comes from great relationships between individuals.
Absolutely. Absolutely, ma'am.
One
That's so
last thing I'd like to add, that, never for a day in this independent journey, I feel that I'm working. I feel that I feel I'm in college, just like, exploring new things, doing new campaigns. It's so much more fun. Yeah.
That's wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was really fun talking to both of you in the morning. Thank you so much.